So the next time you go to Subway and your steak and cheese doesn't have enough banana peppers on it, remember that we live in a very privileged time when it comes to food. Wait, does anyone even get banana peppers on a steak and cheese? It's kind of a weird combo, right? Anyway, for millennia, people never really had a choice about what they ate. They simply ate whatever was available to them at that time. And for many people in the Middle Ages, that was no different. Today on History Hobbit, we're going to explore what a typical medieval peasant ate. Grains were a dietary staple for many peasants because, unlike the wealthy elites, they didn't have access to meat at all times. Variety depended on location. Rye grew better in northern Europe, wheat in the south, and barley and oats in between. Breads were widespread, but porridges and gruels were an even more common way of consuming grain because they didn't require an oven to prepare. With grains so central to diet in the Middle Ages, bakers were integral to societies. When they were caught tampering with ingredients, they would receive severe penalties. That's when the baker's dozen caught on. Bakers would offer 13 for the price of 12 to make certain that they weren't known as a cheat. Grains also had one other important use. Beer was a very common use of grain as well. Drinking water in the Middle Ages during meals was generally frowned upon, so alcoholic beverages were consumed instead. Alcohol was thought to aid the digestion. The wealthy would drink wine, particularly in areas where grapes were readily available. Juices and ciders were also consumed. Not having access to these fine cultured drinks, peasants would drink beer, usually on a daily basis. Barley not being suited to bread making was a favorite brewing grain. Vegetables were only available in season for peasants and would have included many of the varieties we eat today, like cabbage, spinach, carrots, and lettuce. Commonly eaten fruits included apples, pears, cherries, plums, and berries. They also ate some vegetables we don't anymore, like alexanders and scarrots. Alexanders are a tall forest-like plant that look like celery when cut down. They were usually boiled, and according to the couple of weirdos who've tried them in the present day, they taste awful. Also, something about eating a vegetable with a human name just really rubs me the wrong way. Scarrots, as you might imagine, are scared carrots. Just kidding, but they are a relative of carrots. They grow in a big bunch of small roots rather than a single root, so they fell out of favor because they're difficult to peel and cook. Milk products were an important source of protein for peasants and rich folk alike in the Middle Ages. Adults rarely consumed fresh milk though. That was usually reserved for the very young or very elderly. It was also hard to preserve. Cows were common, but sheep and goats were plentiful as well. Cheese was the most commonly consumed dairy product, and at times when meat was scarce, a very important diet staple. Many of the varieties we know today were well liked in the Middle Ages, including Dutch Edam, French Brie, and Italian Parmesan. Butter was a common cooking ingredient and became an important export for the northern areas in Europe from the 12th century onward. So how often did peasants eat meat? Well, not as rarely as you might think. Depending on where they lived, if they had access to areas they could hunt, they would have access to rabbit, fowl, and fish as often as they could catch them. For those families that owned an animal or two, pork and mutton would have been available in the autumn after slaughtering. Peasants needed cattle for milking, and they were also more labor-intensive to raise, so beef was more scarce. After the autumn slaughter, or a particularly good hunt, meats and fish were preserved by drying, smoking, and salting, because remember, no refrigeration. Medieval folk ate some pretty weird meats too. Roast hedgehog was a favorite. An old medieval cookbook instructs to obtain the hedgehog and cut its throat. Then it needs to be gutted and either wrapped in pastry or roasted. Better make sure all the quills are out of that bad boy too. Lampreys were another delicacy. Not familiar with lampreys? Picture a creepy little slimy eel with a suction cup face covered in sharp teeth. And they ate those. Yeah. Peasants were mostly self-sufficient when it came to their food because, let's be honest, what else are they gonna do? Start a garage rock band and beg their neighbors for donations? They would also commonly experience the hunger gap when late in the winter supplies had run out and there was no new growth yet. They couldn't just walk into their local Kroger and stock up. So the next time you pull up to the McDonald's on the way home from work because you can't make it till dinner, just remember that eating whatever we want, whenever we want, is a privilege. Or is it? If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to History Hobbit and click here to watch more of my videos. See you next time.